Ilara, ever trusting, smiled back, taking a grateful sip. The champagne tasted unusually sweet, almost syrupy, but she dismissed it as a rare vintage. Within minutes, a strange warmth spread through her veins, followed by a disorienting dizziness. The glittering chandeliers began to spin, and the elegant faces around her blurred into indistinct forms. A wave of nausea washed over her, and she clutched at Serena's arm, her vision tunneling. His gaze softened as he looked at Ilara, her face streaked with tears, her body still trembling. The anger in his eyes was replaced by a profound sense of guilt, of overwhelming regret. He had misjudged her so terribly. He had accused an innocent woman, a victim, and she had carried the weight of his ignorance for 5 long years, raising their 3 beautiful children alone. The realization hit him with the force of a physical blow. He had 3 children, a family he hadn't known existed, stolen from him by a malicious act. His voice, when he finally spoke, was a raw whisper. Serena's smile widened, a predatory gleam in her eyes as she watched Ilara sway. "Oh, dear, you must be tired. Let me help you to a quiet room to rest." Her voice was a soothing lie, her grip surprisingly strong as she guided Ilara through the throng, past the curious glances, and up a grand staircase. "Serena," he repeated, the name now laced with a cold, dangerous fury. "She did this. To both of us." He looked at Ilara, his eyes filled with a new resolve. "I believe you. And I am so sorry, Ilara, for everything." The silence that followed Alexander's apology was heavy, thick with the weight of unspoken pain and profound revelation. Ilara, still trembling, looked at him, truly looked at him. For the first time, without the veil of fear or the haze of the past, his eyes, though still intense, held a vulnerability she hadn't expected, a genuine remorse that began to chip away at the walls she had built around her heart. The last thing Ilara remembered was the soft, plush carpet beneath her feet and Serena's chilling whisper. "Sleep well, little sister. Your nightmare is just beginning." You were drugged, too," Ilara whispered, the realization dawning on her. It explained his anger, his accusations that morning. He hadn't been a willing participant in her humiliation. He had been a victim of the same cruel hand. When Ilara next opened her eyes, a blinding shaft of morning light pierced through the heavy silk curtains of an unfamiliar room. Her head throbbed, a dull, insistent ache behind her temples, and her mouth felt like sandpaper. Panic, cold and sharp, seized her as she took in her surroundings. This was not her modest bedroom. This was a lavish suite, decorated with an extravagance she had only ever seen in magazines. Alexander nodded, his jaw tight. "I remember the fogginess, the splitting headache. I dismissed it as exhaustion, or perhaps a bad drink. I woke up disoriented, and when I saw you, I assumed the worst. I assumed it was a setup, a calculated attempt to compromise me. I was arrogant, blinded by my own assumptions and the knowledge of how often people tried to use me." He ran a hand over his face, a gesture of deep regret. "I am truly sorry for that. Ilara, I should have investigated, should have known better." And then she saw him, as Ilara recounted the full extent of Serena's long-standing jealousy, her relentless pursuit of the family inheritance, and her increasingly erratic behavior. Alexander's understanding deepened. He saw the pattern, the cold, calculating nature of Serena's malice. He remembered Serena's overly friendly demeanor at the gala, her insistence that he try a specific, potent cocktail. It all clicked into place, a sinister tapestry woven with deceit. Lying beside her, the sheets tangled around his muscular frame, was a man. His dark hair was tousled, a strong jawline shadowed by stubble, and even in sleep, an aura of formidable power emanated from him. A terrifying realization crashed over her, stealing her breath. She was in a stranger's bed, her body aching, her mind a terrifying blank. The horror was absolute, a silent scream trapped in her throat. Her world, once predictable and safe, had shattered into a million irreparable pieces. Ilara's heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat echoing the terror that consumed her. The man beside her stirred, a low groan escaping his lips as he, too, began to stir from his drugged slumber. His eyes, the color of a stormy sea, snapped open, instantly sharp and assessing. They landed on Ilara, and a flicker of confusion, Then a cold, hard anger ignited within them. She always resented me, Alara explained, her voice gaining strength as she spoke, the truth liberating her. Ever since our father remarried, and I became the primary heir, she saw me as an obstacle, a threat to what she believed was hers. This was her ultimate act of sabotage. What the hell? His voice was a deep rumble, laced with a dangerous edge. He sat up abruptly, the sheets falling away to reveal a powerful, sculpted physique. Alara instinctively pulled the covers tighter around herself, her face burning with shame and fear. Alexander listened, his expression hardening with each detail. His anger, previously directed at Alara for hiding his children, now focused squarely on Serena. This wasn't just a personal slight, it was a calculated attack on two innocent people, and it had robbed him of 5 years with his children. The sheer audacity of Serena's scheme fueled a cold, dangerous resolve within him. "Who are you?" he demanded, his gaze raking over her, suspicion hardening his features. "What is this? Was this some kind of setup? She won't get away with this," Alexander stated, his voice low and firm, a promise rather than a threat. "She has manipulated us both, stolen years from our lives, and caused you unimaginable pain. We will make her pay." Alara felt a fresh wave of nausea, not from the lingering effects of the drug, but from the sheer injustice of his accusation. "A setup," she whispered, her voice barely audible. I don't know. I was at the gala. And then, nothing. I don't know how I got here." Tears welled in her eyes, blurring his formidable silhouette. "I was drugged, my sister, Serena. She gave me a drink. A fragile, unexpected bond began to form between them, born not of romance, but of shared trauma and a mutual enemy. They were both victims of Serena's venom, and now they were united in their pursuit of justice. The weight of their shared secret, once a crushing burden, now felt like a foundation for something new, something that might just be called trust." His eyes narrowed, a muscle twitching in his jaw. "Serena, what does she have to do with this?" He swung his legs out of bed, moving with a predatory grace that sent shivers down Alara's spine. He was Alexander Thorne, the man whose name commanded respect and fear in equal measure, and he looked utterly furious. In the days that followed, Alexander began to spend more time at Alara's apartment, initially to discuss their strategy against Serena, but soon his visits extended to include the children, Leo, Luna, and Liam. Initially shy and a little bewildered by the sudden appearance of this imposing man, slowly began to warm to him. She said it was a toast," Alara stammered, clutching the sheets tighter, her mind racing for an escape. The accusations in his eyes were unbearable, the weight of the situation crushing her. "I swear, I didn't know. I would never." Alexander, who had always been focused on his empire, found himself captivated by their innocent joy, their boundless energy. He watched Leo meticulously build towering block structures, his own analytical mind recognizing a kindred spirit. He laughed at Luna's spirited dances and listened intently to Liam's quiet, insightful observations. He read them bedtime stories, his deep voice a comforting rumble. Alexander ran a hand through his dark hair, his expression a mixture of disbelief and simmering rage. "Don't play innocent with me. People don't just wake up in my bed. Someone orchestrated this, and you were either a willing participant or a very convenient pawn." He paced the room, his movements agitated, his mind clearly grappling with the implications of the night. "Do you have any idea the scandal this could cause my reputation?" The children, in turn, were fascinated by him. They clung to his legs, asked him 1,000 questions, and looked at him with eyes that mirrored his own. Their innocent love and acceptance began to heal a part of Alexander he hadn't known was broken, filling a void he hadn't realized existed. Alara watched these interactions, a warmth spreading through her chest. Seeing Alexander with their children, seeing the genuine affection in his eyes, was a powerful balm to her wounded soul. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel so alone, united by a shared purpose and a burning desire for justice. Alara and Alexander embarked on a meticulous, systematic dismantling of Serena's carefully constructed world of deceit. Alexander, with his vast network and unparalleled investigative resources, spearheaded the operation. But Ilara's intimate knowledge of Serena's personality, her vulnerabilities, and her past grievances proved invaluable. His words, though focused on his own predicament, felt like a fresh stab to Ilara's already wounded soul. Her reputation. What about her dignity, her life, which had just been irrevocably shattered? The shame was a burning inferno, consuming her. She couldn't bear another second in that room, under his accusing gaze. They started by revisiting the night of the gala. Alexander's security team meticulously reviewed surveillance footage, cross-referencing guest lists and staff movements. While Serena had been cunning, her arrogance had left subtle traces. A brief, almost imperceptible exchange with a catering staff member. A fleeting glance towards Ilara's untouched drink before Serena approached her. Small details that, when viewed through the lens of suspicion, screamed of premeditation. They also found evidence of Serena making a large, unexplained cash withdrawal just days before the gala, a sum that could have been used to bribe someone to drug Ilara and Alexander. "It wasn't my choice," she sobbed, burying her face in her hands. "I was drugged. By Serena, my half-sister. She gave me a drink at the gala, and the next thing I knew, I was waking up in your bed. I was terrified, disoriented. You were angry. You accused me of a setup. I didn't know who you were, only that I had to escape." Ilara provided details of Serena's increasingly desperate financial situation, her gambling debts, and her attempts to pressure their ailing father into changing his will. Alexander's team followed these leads, uncovering a trail of fraudulent transactions, shell companies, and forged documents designed to siphon off family assets. Serena hadn't just wanted Ilara out of the way for the inheritance. She'd been actively plundering the family fortune, and Ilara's disappearance would have provided the perfect cover for her ongoing embezzlement. "I need to leave," she choked out, scrambling out of the bed, her limbs trembling. She fumbled for her dress, which lay discarded on a nearby armchair, her movements clumsy and desperate. Her head still swam, and the luxurious surroundings felt like a gilded cage. As the evidence mounted, a deeper, more sinister motive began to emerge: Serena's long-standing, almost obsessive infatuation with Alexander himself. They found old, unsent letters, fanatical social media posts, and even a discarded diary entry detailing Serena's twisted fantasy of replacing Ilara and becoming Mrs. Thorne. The drugging wasn't just about inheritance. It was a desperate, deranged attempt to claim Alexander for herself, believing that by compromising him with Ilara, she could somehow step into the void. Alexander watched her, his anger momentarily eclipsed by a flicker of something unreadable, perhaps confusion, or even a hint of concern at her obvious distress. "Wait," he said, his voice a little softer, though still firm. "We need to talk about this. We need to figure out what happened." Serena, meanwhile, sensed the walls closing in, the subtle shifts in the family's demeanor towards her, the sudden tightening of financial oversight, and the rare, piercing gazes from Alexander at public events, all signaled that her carefully constructed facade was cracking. She became increasingly agitated, her usual poise replaced by a brittle defensiveness. She made desperate calls, tried to manipulate old allies, and spread vicious rumors about Ilara, attempting to discredit her before the truth could fully emerge. But her frantic attempts only served to highlight her guilt, her lies unraveling with every desperate move. But Ilara couldn't. The need to escape, to put as much distance as possible between herself and this nightmare, was overwhelming. She pulled on her dress, her fingers fumbling with the zipper, her eyes darting toward the door. The thought of facing anyone, especially him, was unbearable. She had to disappear. Amidst this intense investigation, a beautiful, unexpected dynamic was blossoming at Ilara's home. Alexander's visits became a daily ritual, eagerly anticipated by Leo, Luna, and Liam. He was no longer just the tall, serious man who visited their mother. He was Daddy. He taught Leo how to build complex structures with his blocks, patiently explained the constellations to Luna, and engaged Liam in quiet, thoughtful conversations about the world around them. Without another word, without looking back at the powerful, bewildered man in the opulent suite, Ilara bolted. She ran through the silent corridors of the penthouse, her bare feet barely touching the plush carpet, down the grand staircase, and out into the crisp morning air. The city, usually a comforting hum, now felt like a vast, indifferent entity, mirroring the emptiness in her heart. She didn't know where she was going, only that she had to run, to escape the devastating truth of what had just happened, and the man she had left behind. The days that followed Ilara's desperate escape blurred into a haze of fear, confusion, and a gnawing emptiness. She found refuge in a small, nondescript apartment on the outskirts of the city, far from the opulent world she had briefly, and disastrously, inhabited. Every shadow seemed to hold the gaze of Alexander Thorne. Every distant siren a reminder of Serena's insidious betrayal. She cut off all contact with her family, her phone silenced, her social media accounts deactivated. The thought of facing her sister, or anyone who knew of her, was unbearable. The children, in their innocent joy, were a balm to Alexander's soul, healing the years of unknowing. They brought out a warmth and playfulness in him that few in his corporate world had ever witnessed. Ilara watched, her heart swelling with a mixture of awe and profound gratitude. Seeing Alexander, the formidable CEO, on the floor playing with their children, his eyes alight with genuine affection, solidified her trust in him. The shared pursuit of justice was forging not just an alliance, but the foundations of a true family. The children, unaware of the storm brewing around Serena, were simply basking in the newfound love and attention of their father, their laughter filling the small apartment with a joyous melody. The stage was set, not for a corporate merger or a charity gala, but for Serena Vance's public reckoning. Alexander, with Ilara by his side, had meticulously planned the unveiling. They chose the annual Vance Family Foundation dinner, a high-profile event attended by the city's elite, including key figures from the legal and financial sectors, and crucially, their ailing father, who remained largely unaware of Serena's true machinations. Weeks turned into a month, and a new, unsettling sensation began to stir within her. A persistent nausea that wasn't just the lingering trauma, a fatigue that defied explanation, and a growing unease in her own body. Denial was a powerful shield, but even that began to crack under the relentless onslaught of symptoms. One morning, after a particularly violent wave of sickness, a chilling realization dawned upon her. Ilara felt a knot of anxiety in her stomach, but it was tempered by steely resolve. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about justice, about reclaiming her dignity, and about securing a future for her children free from Serena's toxic shadow. Alexander squeezed her hand reassuringly, his presence a solid anchor. With trembling hands and a heart pounding like a trapped bird, Ilara bought a pregnancy test. The two pink lines that appeared almost instantly confirmed her deepest fear and simultaneously ignited a fierce, protective instinct she hadn't known she possessed. She was pregnant, the child of that horrifying night, the tangible proof of Serena's cruelty and Alexander Thorne's unwitting involvement was growing inside her. The dinner began with the usual polite chatter and forced smiles. Serena, oblivious to the trap closing around her, moved through the room with her customary air of calculated charm, occasionally casting a triumphant glance towards Ilara, believing she had won. She even approached Ilara, a condescending smirk on her face. Still trying to cling to the fringes, Ilara. Some people just don't know when to give up. Despair threatened to consume her. How could she, a woman stripped of her dignity and reputation, raise a child alone? How could she explain its existence, its unknown father, to a world that would undoubtedly judge her? The shame was immense, a heavy cloak that threatened to suffocate her. She thought of abortion, a fleeting, desperate consideration. But the moment the thought solidified, a profound sense of wrongness washed over her. This innocent life, a part of her, deserved a chance. Ilara met her gaze, a quiet fire in her eyes. Some people don't know when their lies are about to catch up to them. Serena, a quiet strength, born from the ashes of her shattered life, began to emerge. She was no longer just Ilara, the naive artist. She was a mother, and her first, most sacred duty was to protect this tiny, vulnerable being. The decision, though agonizing, became clear. She could not stay where the shadows of her past loomed so large. She could not allow her child to grow up under the weight of scandal or the cruel whispers of a society that would never understand. A flicker of unease crossed Serena's face, but she quickly dismissed it. Ilara packed a single suitcase, leaving behind almost everything she owned, every memory of her old life. She bought a one-way train ticket to a small, coastal town hundreds of miles away, a place where no one knew her name, her past, or the devastating secret she carried. It was a leap of faith into the unknown, a desperate act of self-preservation, and a silent promise to the life blooming within her. As the main course was served, Alexander rose from his seat, commanding immediate attention. His voice, usually reserved for boardrooms, resonated through the ballroom. Ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed, I have an important announcement, one that concerns the integrity of this esteemed foundation, and indeed, the very fabric of trust within our community. As the train pulled away from the station, carrying her further and further from her old life, Elara pressed a hand to her still flat abdomen. A tear escaped, tracing a path down her cheek, but it was not a tear of despair. It was a tear of resolve. She would build a new life, a safe haven, for her child, the man, Alexander Thorne, whose face she could barely recall in her drugged haze, would remain a ghost from a nightmare. She would raise her child in peace, far from the complexities and dangers of his world, and the insidious reach of her sister's malice. This secret, her burden and her blessing, would be hers alone to carry. 5 years. 5 years had passed since Elara Vance, broken and pregnant, had fled the city that held her darkest memories. The small, coastal town she had chosen, with its gentle sea breeze and close-knit community, had become her sanctuary. Here, she was simply Elara, the quiet, kind woman who ran a small, successful online art gallery, selling her vibrant, emotionally charged paintings. No one knew of the scandal, the betrayal, or the powerful CEO whose name still sent a shiver down her spine. A hush fell over the room. Serena's smile faltered, a prickle of alarm making her heart race. Her life, once defined by fear and shame, was now brimming with a different kind of purpose. A love so profound it eclipsed all past pain. That love came in triplicate: Leo, Luna, and Liam, her triplets. They were 5 years old now, a whirlwind of boundless energy, insatiable curiosity, and an uncanny resemblance to a man Elara had tried desperately to forget. Leo, with his thoughtful gaze and a mischievous glint in his eyes. Luna, bright and spirited, with a laugh that could chase away any shadow. And Liam, the quiet observer, possessing a wisdom beyond his years. Each of them a unique blend of her resilience and his undeniable strength. Alexander continued, his gaze locking onto Serena. For too long, certain individuals have operated under a veil of deceit, driven by greed and malice. Tonight, that veil is lifted. He gestured to a large screen that descended behind him. My team and I have uncovered irrefutable evidence of systematic fraud, embezzlement, and a heinous act of personal betrayal, all orchestrated by one individual present here tonight. Elara had poured every ounce of her being into raising them. She worked tirelessly, late into the nights after they were asleep, painting and managing her gallery, ensuring they had everything they needed. Her small apartment, once a lonely space, was now filled with the joyful chaos of toys, children's laughter, and the comforting aroma of home-cooked meals. She taught them about kindness, about the beauty of the world, and about the importance of honesty, shielding them from the harsh realities of her past. The first image flashed onto the screen: bank statements detailing Serena's illicit transactions, followed by forged documents bearing her signature. Gasps rippled through the room. Serena's face went pale, her eyes wide with disbelief and dawning horror. She had learned to be strong, not just for them, but for herself. The naive girl who had been so easily manipulated was gone, replaced by a woman forged in the fires of adversity. Her artistic passion, once a gentle hobby, had become her anchor, a way to express the complex tapestry of her emotions, and to find beauty even in the darkest corners of her experience. Her paintings, vibrant and evocative, spoke of resilience, hope, and the quiet strength of the human spirit. Then came the surveillance footage from the gala 5 years ago. The grainy but clear images showed Serena approaching Elara, pressing a drink into her hand, her movements subtly manipulative. Another clip showed Serena discreetly slipping something into Alexander's drink when he was momentarily distracted. The murmurs grew louder, turning into outright whispers of shock and outrage. Yet, despite the peace she had found, the shadows of her past lingered. Sometimes, a fleeting glimpse of a tall, dark-haired man in a crowd would send a jolt of fear through her. Sometimes, a news article about Thorne Industries would catch her eye. and the name Alexander Thorne would echo in her mind, a phantom reminder of the night that had changed everything. She had built walls around her heart, protecting herself and her children from the possibility of that world ever encroaching on their peaceful existence. Elara, her voice clear and steady, then stepped forward. 5 years ago, I was drugged by my half-sister, Serena Vance, and delivered to Alexander Thorne's bed in a malicious attempt to ruin my reputation and seize my inheritance. She also drugged Mr. Thorne, making him an unwitting participant in her scheme. She paused, her gaze unwavering as she looked at her father, who stared at Serena with a look of profound heartbreak and betrayal. The consequences of that night were profound, not just for me, but for Mr. Thorne, and for the 3 innocent children born from that forced encounter. Her children were her world, her reason for being. Their innocent questions about their father were always met with a gentle, evasive answer about him being far away, or a very busy man. It was a lie she hated, but one she believed was necessary to protect them from the truth, from the judgment, and from the powerful man who might one day claim them. She lived each day with a quiet gratitude for their presence, a fierce determination to keep them safe, and an unspoken prayer that the past would never catch up to them. But fate, as it often does, had other plans. The hum of the city, a symphony of distant traffic and muted conversations, was a stark contrast to the quiet rhythm of Alara's coastal town. She had traveled to the bustling metropolis for a crucial pitch meeting for her new event planning company, a venture she had painstakingly built from the ground up. Her online art gallery had provided a stable income, but her ambition, fueled by the need to secure a brighter future for her children, had pushed her to expand. Today was a big day, a potential turning point. She then presented the final, most damning pieces of evidence: Serena's obsessive diary entries and unsent letters to Alexander, revealing her twisted fantasies and her deliberate plan to eliminate Elara and claim him. The room erupted. Serena, her facade completely shattered, let out a strangled cry. Her heart pounded with a mix of nerves and excitement as she stepped into the sleek, glass-encased lobby of Thorne Tower, the very epicenter of Alexander Thorne's empire. The irony was not lost on her. She was here, in the lion's den. Yet she felt a strange sense of detachment, as if the past belonged to a different lifetime. She had meticulously prepared, every detail of her presentation polished to perfection. The meeting went well, exceeding her expectations. The executives were impressed, and a sense of triumph swelled within her. As she gathered her materials, a familiar voice, deep and resonant, echoed from the hallway. A voice that had haunted her nightmares for years, yet one she hadn't truly believed she would ever hear again outside of her own tortured memories. She froze, her hand hovering over her briefcase. Then, he appeared, tall, impeccably dressed, with that same formidable aura of power and an intensity in his stormy gray eyes. Alexander Thorne. He was even more imposing than she remembered, his presence filling the corridor, drawing every eye. He was speaking to a group of associates, his expression serious, authoritative. Her frantic attempts to deny and manipulate were futile against the overwhelming proof. Her family, once her unwitting enablers, now looked at her with disgust. Her father, tears streaming down his face, could only shake his head in profound sorrow. The public disgrace was absolute. Within hours, news of the scandal dominated headlines, and legal proceedings against Serena Vance for fraud, assault, and attempted manipulation were swiftly initiated. Justice, long delayed, was finally being served. In the tumultuous aftermath of Serena's spectacular downfall, a fragile calm settled over Elara and Alexander's lives. The public scandal, though painful, had served its purpose. Serena was facing the full force of the law, and the truth, however brutal, was finally out. Now, the arduous but necessary process of rebuilding could begin. Elara felt the blood drain from her face, her carefully constructed composure shattered, replaced by a wave of dizzying panic. This couldn't be happening. Not here, not now. She ducked her head, trying to make herself invisible, her heart threatening to burst from her chest. He was walking closer, his footsteps echoing ominously on the polished marble floor. For Elara, the immediate relief was immense. The crushing weight of her secret had been lifted, and the fear of exposure had dissipated. Yet, The emotional scars of betrayal and years of solitude ran deep. She found herself navigating a new landscape, one where Alexander, once a terrifying stranger, was now an undeniable presence in her and her children's lives. He passed by her, so close she could feel the faint brush of air from his movement. Her breath hitched. He paused, just for a fraction of a second, his gaze sweeping over her. There was a flicker of something in his eyes, a vague familiarity, perhaps, but no recognition. He moved on, continuing his conversation, completely oblivious to the woman whose life he had unknowingly altered forever. Alexander, too, was grappling with the profound shifts in his world. The discovery of his children and the revelation of Serena's treachery had shaken his meticulously ordered existence. He was a CEO accustomed to control, but fatherhood, especially under such extraordinary circumstances, was a new, humbling challenge. He approached it with the same dedication he applied to his business empire, determined to make amends for the lost years. Alara let out a shaky breath she hadn't realized she was holding. He hadn't recognized her. The relief was immense, a fragile shield against the terror that still lingered. She quickly made her way out of the building, needing fresh air, needing to escape the suffocating proximity of her past. Their relationship, initially forged in shared trauma and a common enemy, began to evolve. They spent hours talking, not just about Serena, but about their pasts, their fears, and their hopes for the future. Alara, cautious by nature, slowly began to lower her guard, finding solace in Alexander's genuine remorse and his unwavering commitment to their children. He listened, truly listened, to her pain and her journey, offering support and understanding she hadn't known she craved. She had promised her children a treat after her meeting, and they were waiting with her trusted friend and nanny, Clara, at a small park a few blocks away. As she approached, she saw them, Leo, Luna, and Liam, a vibrant splash of color against the green grass. Leo was meticulously stacking blocks. Luna was twirling, her laughter echoing, and Liam was quietly observing a butterfly. They were so beautiful, so innocent, so utterly oblivious to the storm their mother had just narrowly avoided. The children, Leo, Luna, and Liam, were the true architects of their reconciliation. Their innocent joy and boundless love bridged the gaps between their parents. They had fully embraced Alexander as Daddy, their laughter filling the once quiet apartment. Alexander, in turn, reveled in their presence. He learned to balance his demanding schedule with school runs, bedtime stories, and weekend adventures. He discovered the simple, profound joys of fatherhood, joys that far surpassed any corporate victory. Her heart swelled with love, but also with a renewed, piercing fear. What if he had recognized her? What if he saw them? Their resemblance to him was undeniable, a constant and startling reminder of that night. As she watched them, a sudden chill ran down her spine. Alexander Thorne's car, a sleek black sedan, slowly drove past the park entrance. He was looking out the window, his gaze sweeping across the playground, a thoughtful, almost contemplative expression on his face. Alara watched as Alexander transformed from a formidable CEO into a devoted father, his eyes softening when he looked at their children, a genuine smile replacing his usual stoic expression. This transformation was the most powerful balm to her wounded soul. She saw that he wasn't just accepting his role, he was embracing it with every fiber of his being. Alara instinctively pulled her children closer, her body tensing. He didn't stop. He didn't even slow down. But the terrifying proximity, the sheer coincidence of his presence so close to her most precious secret, sent a wave of icy dread through her. The world, it seemed, was far smaller than she had ever imagined. Her carefully built sanctuary felt suddenly vulnerable, exposed. Alexander Thorne was a man accustomed to control, to logic, to a world where every variable could be accounted for. Yet, the fleeting glimpse of a woman in his tower, followed by the sight of 3 children in a park, had unsettled him in a way he couldn't quite articulate. The woman, Alara Vance, he'd seen her name on the event planning proposal. There was something familiar about her, a ghost of a memory that tugged at the edges of his consciousness, but it remained stubbornly out of reach. Slowly, tentatively, their co-parenting evolved into something more. Dinners together became a regular occurrence, then shared evenings, then quiet moments after the children were asleep. where they simply talked or sat in comfortable silence. The initial awkwardness gave way to a growing ease, then a quiet camaraderie, and finally, a nascent affection. What truly captivated him, however, were the children. He had been on his way to a charity event, his mind preoccupied with corporate mergers and global markets. When his car had passed the small, vibrant park, his gaze, usually sharp and analytical, had been drawn to a trio of children playing near a swing set. Alara found herself shedding the emotional scars of the past, piece by painful piece. With Alexander's support, she began to heal, to believe in the possibility of a future where happiness wasn't just a distant dream. She saw his genuine efforts, his unwavering support, and felt a sense of security she hadn't experienced in years. The path ahead was still uncertain, filled with the challenges of blending two lives and two worlds. But for the first time, Alara felt a profound sense of hope. They were not just two individuals brought together by a cruel twist of fate. They were two people, united by their children, slowly, carefully, building a new foundation on trust, understanding, and the promise of a shared future. The decision to officially unite their lives was not made lightly, but with a profound sense of purpose and a shared vision for their future. Alara and Alexander, having navigated the treacherous waters of betrayal and reconciliation, now stood on the precipice of a new beginning. They announced their engagement, a quiet affair at first, but one that soon became public knowledge, sparking a flurry of media attention. The narrative had shifted dramatically from scandal to a story of resilience, redemption, and an unexpected love. The boy, with his dark, intelligent eyes and a certain intensity in his focus as he stacked blocks, had struck him first. Then the girl, a whirlwind of bright energy, her laughter echoing through the air, her features undeniably similar to the boy's, and the third, quieter one, observing the world with a thoughtful, almost solemn gaze. The initial weeks were a whirlwind of adjustments. Alara moved into Alexander's sprawling estate, a stark contrast to her cozy apartment. The children, initially wide-eyed and a little overwhelmed by the sheer size and opulence, quickly adapted, their joyful energy filling the grand halls. Alexander, for his part, embraced the chaos. His morning routine now included helping Leo find his misplaced toy car, braiding Luna's hair with varying degrees of success, and sharing quiet breakfast with Liam before heading to his office. It wasn't just their dark hair or their fair skin, it was something in their eyes, a particular shade of stormy gray that mirrored his own. It was the curve of their lips when they smiled, the way they tilted their heads in concentration, even a subtle arch in their eyebrows that was eerily familiar. He'd seen countless children in his life, but these three, they were different. They resonated with something deep within him, a primal recognition he couldn't explain. Blending two previously separate worlds presented its own unique set of challenges. Alexander's demanding career meant frequent travel and late nights, but he made a conscious effort to prioritize his family, delegating more and ensuring he was present for the moments that mattered. Alara, fiercely independent, continued to manage her art gallery and event planning company, refusing to be defined solely by her new role as Mrs. Thorne. She found immense satisfaction in her work, proving to herself and to the world that her talents extended far beyond her personal story. He dismissed it at first, coincidence. The city was vast, and resemblances were common, but the image of their faces lingered, replaying in his mind with an insistent clarity. He found himself distracted in meetings, his thoughts drifting back to the park, to the children. The woman, Alara, had been with them. Was she their mother? Was it just a nanny? Their relationship deepened, evolving from a foundation of shared trauma into a profound connection built on mutual respect, understanding, and an undeniable love for their children. They learned to communicate openly, to navigate disagreements with patience, and to lean on each other for support. Alexander admired Alara's quiet strength, her unwavering kindness, and her artistic spirit. Alara, in turn, found herself increasingly drawn to Alexander's unwavering integrity, his protective nature, and the unexpected tenderness he showed towards her and their children. The vague familiarity he felt towards Alara intensified. He reviewed the notes from her company's pitch. Her profile picture showed a woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile, but it didn't spark the full recognition he felt he should have. Yet, the feeling persisted, a nagging sensation that he knew her, or had known her, from somewhere important. The children flourished in the warmth and stability of their new family unit. Leo, with his burgeoning intellect, thrived in the stimulating environment, constantly asking questions and exploring new concepts. Luna, ever the social butterfly, reveled in the expanded family, charming everyone she met. Liam, the thoughtful observer, found a quiet confidant in Alexander, sharing his insightful observations and developing a strong bond with his father. They were a testament to the power of love and resilience, their laughter echoing through the estate, a constant reminder of the joy that had blossomed from the ashes of betrayal. Days turned into a week. Alexander found himself subtly altering his routes, driving past that park, hoping for another glimpse. He saw them again, playing with the same joyful abandon, and the resemblance struck him even harder. It was undeniable. These children looked exactly like him. Not just a passing similarity, but a profound, almost genetic echo. Public scrutiny remained, but it was different now. The initial sensationalism had given way to a narrative of a family overcoming adversity. Ilara and Alexander chose to share their story selectively, focusing on the positive aspects of their journey and emphasizing the importance of truth and justice. They became a symbol of hope for many, proving that even from the darkest of circumstances, a beautiful future could be forged. Their love, once an improbable outcome, now felt like an undeniable destiny, a testament to the enduring power of family. As the dust settled from the public revelations and legal proceedings against Serena, life for Ilara, Alexander, and their children began to settle into a rhythm of profound joy and contentment. The initial whirlwind of adjustments gave way to a comfortable normalcy, a testament to their resilience and the strength of their growing bond. His logical mind, trained to solve complex problems and uncover hidden truths, began to work. He remembered the gala 5 years ago, the one night he had woken up disoriented in his own bed, with a vague, unsettling memory of a woman he had dismissed as a gold digger, a setup. He had been drugged that night. He remembered the lingering fogginess, the splitting headache. He had never pursued it, too busy with his empire, too disgusted by the perceived manipulation. Ilara, no longer defined by her past trauma, blossomed. With Alexander's unwavering support, she found the freedom to pursue passions beyond motherhood and her existing businesses. She began to dedicate more time to her fine art, creating larger, more ambitious pieces that reflected her journey from darkness to light. Her art gallery flourished, and her event planning company secured high-profile contracts, solidifying her reputation as a formidable and creative professional. She found immense fulfillment in her work, a sense of purpose that was uniquely her own, proving that her spirit remained unbroken and vibrant. Now, a chilling possibility began to form. Could the woman from that night be Ilara? Could these children? Could they be his? The thought was staggering, almost unbelievable. He had no memory of the woman's face, only a fleeting impression of dark hair and wide, frightened eyes. But the timing, the strange familiarity with Ilara, and the undeniable resemblance of the children. It was too much to be mere coincidence. Alexander, the once stoic CEO, discovered the true meaning of family. He learned to balance his demanding career with his newfound role as a devoted father and partner. He made conscious choices to be present, to attend school plays, to coach Leo's junior soccer team, and to simply be there for the quiet moments of connection. His colleagues noted a subtle but significant change in him, a newfound warmth, a deeper sense of contentment that radiated from him. He found that the success of his empire felt hollow, without the laughter and love of his family filling his home. He needed answers. His curiosity, initially a mild flicker, had now become an all-consuming fire. He had to know. He had to understand the connection between Ilara Vance, the woman who had appeared in his tower, and the 3 children who looked exactly like him. He picked up his phone, his expression grim, and made a call that would set in motion a chain of events that would unravel years of secrets. Alexander Thorne was a man who moved with precision and purpose. The vague familiarity with Ilara Vance and the undeniable, almost haunting resemblance of her children to himself had ignited a firestorm of questions within him. He couldn't dismiss it as coincidence any longer. His gut, a reliable compass in the cutthroat world of business, told him there was a profound connection, a missing piece to a puzzle he hadn't even known existed. The children, Leo, Luna, and Liam, thrived in this environment of unconditional love and stability. Leo, with his sharp mind, excelled in school, his curiosity encouraged by both parents. He often spent hours in Alexander's study, discussing everything from astrophysics to ancient history, a budding intellectual mirroring his father. Luna, ever the vibrant and expressive one, pursued her love for dance and music, her performances bringing immense joy to the family. Liam, the thoughtful and empathetic soul, developed a deep connection with animals, often bringing home stray creatures for Alara to help him care for, embodying the kindness that ran deep in his mother. "Lies, all lies!" she shrieked, her voice shrill and desperate, her eyes darting around the room like a trapped animal. She tried to bolt, but security personnel, discreetly positioned by Alexander, quickly intercepted her. Their home, once a grand, somewhat impersonal estate, was now filled with the vibrant energy of a bustling family. There were impromptu dance parties in the living room, art projects spread across the dining table, and boisterous games of hide-and-seek in the sprawling gardens. Alara and Alexander often found themselves simply watching their children, a profound sense of gratitude and wonder filling their hearts. He immediately tasked his most trusted and discreet investigative team with a single, urgent directive: find everything there was to know about Alara Vance. He provided her name, her current company, and the approximate location of the park where he had seen her with the children. He emphasized the need for absolute secrecy, unwilling to risk a scandal or to alert anyone, especially Alara herself. Before he had all the facts, their love for each other deepened with each passing day. It was a love forged in adversity, tested by betrayal, and strengthened by shared responsibility and unwavering commitment. They were partners in every sense of the word, navigating the complexities of life with mutual respect and a profound understanding of each other's strengths and vulnerabilities. The shadows of the past had receded, replaced by the bright, enduring light of their happiness. They had built not just a family, but a sanctuary, a testament to the fact that even after the darkest storms, the most beautiful paths can be found, leading to a future filled with peace and boundless love. Years had passed since the storm of Serena's betrayal had raged, and now, the Thorne estate stood as a beacon of peace, laughter, and unbreakable love. Alara and Alexander, once strangers brought together by a cruel twist of fate, had forged a future more beautiful and profound than either could have imagined. Their journey, marked by adversity and healing, had culminated in a life rich with happiness, stability, and an enduring sense of gratitude. The team worked with Thorne-like efficiency. Within days, the first reports began to trickle in. They confirmed Alara Vance's identity, her background as an artist, and her recent venture into event planning. More significantly, they uncovered her sudden, unexplained disappearance from the city 5 years prior. Her old apartment had been vacated abruptly, her phone number disconnected, and all contact with her family, particularly her half-sister Serena, had ceased. Serena's legal battles had concluded, resulting in a lengthy prison sentence and the complete forfeiture of her ill-gotten gains. Justice, though slow, had been absolute, providing a definitive closure to the painful chapter of their lives. The Vance family, scarred but united, had begun to heal, their father finding solace in the unwavering love and integrity of Alara and his grandchildren. This detail resonated deeply with Alexander. Serena, the name from that hazy, drugged night. He remembered Alara's panicked accusation, her trembling voice naming Serena as the one who had given her the drink. At the time, he had dismissed it as a desperate lie, a deflection. Now, a cold dread began to coil in his stomach. Leo, now a brilliant young man, was excelling in his studies, his sharp mind set on a future in technology, often collaborating with Alexander on innovative projects. Luna, with her vibrant spirit, had blossomed into a talented dancer, her performances captivating audiences and bringing a unique artistry to their lives. Liam, the quiet observer, had found his calling in animal welfare, his gentle nature and deep empathy making him a passionate advocate for the voiceless. Each child, a living testament to the strength and love that had nurtured them, was pursuing their dreams. Confident and secure in their family's unwavering support, the investigators delved deeper, Tracing Alara's movements to the quiet coastal town where she had settled, they found records of her children's births, triplets, born 5 years ago, just months after the gala. The timing was chillingly precise, aligning perfectly with the night he had been drugged. Alara continued to thrive, her art now celebrated on an international scale, her event planning company a leader in its field. She was no longer just a survivor, she was a creator, an innovator, a woman who had transformed her pain into purpose. Her mornings often began with quiet moments in her studio, the canvas a reflection of the vibrant, hopeful world she had built. He received photographs, not just of Alara, but of Leo, Luna, and Liam. He studied them with an intensity that bordered on obsession. The images confirmed what his instincts had screamed the children's eyes: their hair, the very shape of their faces. They were undeniably his. A wave of emotions, complex and overwhelming, washed over him: shock, disbelief, a surge of possessiveness, and a profound, aching sense of loss for the years he hadn't known them. Alexander, the formidable CEO, had found a new definition of success. His empire continued to flourish, but his greatest achievements were now measured in the laughter of his children, the quiet strength of Alara's hand in his, and the profound sense of belonging he felt within his family. He had learned that true power lay not just in wealth or influence, but in the unwavering bonds of love and the courage to protect those you cherish. The reports also detailed Serena Vance's activities over the past 5 years, her relentless pursuit of the family inheritance, her increasingly desperate financial situation, and her reputation for ruthless ambition. Alexander's mind, sharp and analytical, began to connect the dots. Serena's jealousy, her desire to eliminate Alara as an heir, her possible knowledge of Alexander's own vulnerability that night. It all pointed to a deliberate, malicious scheme. Their home was a sanctuary, a place where every corner held a memory, every room echoed with joy. Family dinners were boisterous affairs, filled with lively debates and shared stories. Holidays were grand celebrations, bringing together a loving extended family that had grown to include trusted friends and colleagues who had witnessed their journey. The pieces of the puzzle clicked into place with horrifying clarity. He had been a pawn, a tool in Serena's cruel game, just as Alara had been. The woman he had dismissed as a gold digger, the one he had accused of orchestrating a setup, had been an innocent victim, just like him. And she had carried the ultimate consequence of that night, raising their 3 children alone, in secret, for 5 long years. Alara and Alexander often found themselves stealing quiet moments, watching their children play, their hearts overflowing with a love that felt both miraculous and entirely deserved. Their hands would intertwine, a silent acknowledgement of the path they had walked, the battles they had fought, and the beautiful, imperfect, utterly real family they had built. The shadows of the past were truly gone, replaced by the bright, enduring light of their happiness. Their story was a testament to resilience, the triumph of truth over deceit, and the profound journey of healing and forgiveness that had led them to their well-deserved peace, a future forged in love and justice. A cold fury simmered beneath Alexander's usually composed exterior. Fury at Serena, for her vile manipulation, fury at himself, for his blind assumption and for not investigating sooner. But beneath the anger, a powerful new emotion bloomed, a fierce, protective instinct for the 3 children he now knew were his, and a growing sense of guilt and profound regret towards Alara, the woman he had so unjustly misjudged. He closed the file, his jaw clenched. He had the answers he needed. Now, it was time for the confrontation. The air in Alara's small apartment crackled with an unspoken tension. She had agreed to meet Alexander Thorne, her heart a frantic drum against her ribs. After he had insisted on a private conversation about her company's proposal, she knew, deep down, it wasn't about business. His gaze, when he had seen her in the park, had held a flicker of something too intense, too knowing. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Stay with us for the next one. And while you're here, check out our other videos. There's always more to explore. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments below. He stood before her, a formidable presence that dwarfed her modest living room. His stormy gray eyes, so familiar in her children's faces, now pierced through her with an unnerving intensity. He held a file in his hand, thin but heavy with unspoken implications. Alara Vance, he began, his voice low, controlled, but with an undercurrent of barely restrained emotion. "We need to talk. Not about event planning." He paused, his gaze unwavering. "We need to talk about 5 years ago. And we need to talk about Leo, Luna, and Liam." Alara felt the blood drain from her face. Her carefully constructed world, her sanctuary, was crumbling around her. The secret she had guarded so fiercely, the burden she had carried alone, was about to be laid bare. Her breath hitched, and she instinctively took a step back. I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered, a desperate, futile attempt at denial. Her voice trembled, betraying her. Alexander's jaw tightened. He opened the file, revealing photographs of her children, clear and undeniable. "Don't insult my intelligence, Alara. These are your children, and they are undeniably mine. Born 5 years ago, just months after the Thorn Gala. Your sudden disappearance, your severed ties with your family. It all adds up." He laid the photos on her coffee table, each image a silent accusation, a testament to the truth she had hidden. How did you?" Alara whispered, tears blurring her vision. The fight had gone out of her. There was no escaping the truth now. "I have resources," Alexander stated, his voice hardening. "Resources I used to uncover what you clearly intended to keep hidden. Why, Alara? Why did you keep them from me? Why did you disappear?" His questions were sharp, laced with anger, but also a raw pain that Alara hadn't expected. Cornered, with nowhere left to run, Alara sank onto the sofa, her body trembling. The dam broke, through a torrent of tears, her voice choked with shame and lingering trauma. She recounted the horrifying truth of that night. The chandeliers in the grand ballroom of the Thorn estate glittered like 1,000 captured stars, casting a warm, deceptive glow over the assembled elite. Alara Vance, dressed in a simple yet elegant gown, felt a familiar unease settle over her. She was a quiet presence amidst the cacophony of ambition and old money, a stark contrast to her half-sister, Serena, who commanded attention with every calculated smile and perfectly coiffed curl. Serena, a viper cloaked in silk, watched Alara from across the room, a venomous glint in her eyes. Tonight was the night. The Vance family inheritance, a fortune Alara was poised to inherit, felt like a personal affront to Serena, who believed it was rightfully hers. The gala, hosted by the enigmatic Alexander Thorn, a man whose power was as legendary as his reclusiveness, presented the perfect opportunity for Serena to execute her meticulously crafted plan. She lifted her tear-streaked face, her eyes pleading for him to understand. "When I found out I was pregnant, I was alone, disgraced. I knew I couldn't raise a child in that environment, under the shadow of scandal. I didn't even know who the father was. Not truly. I just knew I had to protect my baby. And then I saw you again, and I saw them. And I knew." Alara, unaware of the storm brewing, sipped her champagne, trying to blend into the opulent background. She was a dreamer, an artist at heart, and the cutthroat world of high society felt alien and suffocating. Her only comfort was the thought of escaping back to her quiet studio. Far from the whispers and judging glances, Alexander stood motionless, absorbing her words. His initial anger, fueled by a sense of betrayal and injustice, slowly began to recede, replaced by a chilling realization. Serena? Her name echoed in his mind, connecting with the fragmented memories of that night. He remembered Alara's accusation, dismissed as a lie. He remembered the lingering fogginess, the splitting headache. He had been drugged too. "Alara! Darling! You look absolutely radiant tonight," Serena purred, appearing beside her with a dazzling, insincere smile. She pressed a fresh glass of champagne into Alara's hand. "This one's special. A toast to new beginnings. Wouldn't you say?" The pieces of his own memory, once hazy and disconnected, began to snap into place, forming a horrifying picture. Serena's calculated smile at the gala, her unusual insistence that he try a particular drink, her ambition, her jealousy of Alara. He had been a victim, just like Alara, a pawn in a cruel, elaborate game.